So we have one more speaker before we break, right?
Right. So we've invited Dean Krafft to come and give us a perspective from the university library community. And we have a number of university library folks here today. And so I hope we would hear more of this discussion in our various breakouts and hallway discussions. So this is one way to sort of inspire some discussion. So thank you, Dean.
So I am, in fact, going to try and do a view of what this looks like from the university library. I will be trying, to the extent I can, to channel our university librarian, Ann Kenny, while also providing some of my own IT perspective and spin. So let me start out with a few platitudes. In fact, these reinforce many of the things you've already heard from other speakers, Ed and others. Although the first one, we'll have to see how this one plays out, since Ed's pitch was more let's do everything for everybody. I encourage the group to define where they're going to have the biggest impact and not necessarily try to do everything at once. So what is the niche that we should be targeting? This one has certainly been spoken to by many people. Don't be a silo, play well with others. Leverage the systems that are out there. Examples from our perspective include ORCID, DataSite, Share, Vivo, and Deepen. I'll speak to all of those in a bit. We got to meet the needs of the researchers, of the research institutions, of the research centers, of folks in the supercomputing community, and of course, the funders. I'll reinforce what some people have said. I think it's really important to have a believable business model, so people are going to be willing to invest in this and think it's going to be around, 5-10 years from now. And finally, I don't know if this is quite a platitude. I'll be interested to see how controversial it is. I would encourage you to use linked open data to represent how data sets relate to the entire research ecosystem. So let me start talking about some of the ways that I think libraries can work with the National Data Service. We already do a lot of things in support of research data. I mean, it's a growing effort at a large number of research libraries. We work to help researchers describe their data, provide the metadata for it. We help them pick formats to store it in, find the repositories to put it in. We provide guidance on privacy, licensing, and sharing issues. So that's an important issue for a lot of all sorts of kinds of data. Some of that's come up already. And we work to ensure preservation of appropriate data for future research reuse. We have worked in the past and can work in the future to collaborate at scale across institutions and disciplines. We can work to help link data with the research context to make it more discoverable and reusable. We can help link publications to the research, working along with the publishers on that. We can provide collaborative tools and spaces to help researchers work with the data. We can provide people and organizational support to help researchers to manage research data. University libraries exist across the entire university. We cover all disciplines, and we can provide broad support across the disciplines to help meet these needs. So there are some things we can't do. We don't work with really, really big data. We don't have that experience. We can help describe it and make it accessible and give context to it. We obviously can't fund this ourselves. We can put some resources to it, but there needs to be a business model to support costs for the library as well as for the broader National Data Service enterprise. We really can't do work that doesn't clearly benefit our own researchers and institutions. There has to be a win at my institution for Cornell in this, for the provost to be willing to say, yes, continue doing this. And we are not in the business really of providing cyber infrastructure. That's what a lot of other organizations here are doing. For libraries, this is really posing a new challenge. We're seeking to evolve to meet the research data needs. We're looking at how we define new services. So I think various university research libraries are in different places along the spectrum of developing these capabilities, but I think there's a general recognition that we do have to be providing these kinds of services. So just as an example, I'm going to talk a little about some specific services that the Cornell Library provides, but in fact most research libraries do similar things. So we have an institutional repository, originally designed for publications, but in fact we've been using it for research data. We've now developed specific policies. The idea was that we would in fact pick up some of the long tail of research data. We say up to 10 gigabytes, everybody chuckles in this room, but there are a lot of data sets that really fall under that limit. When we did a survey of researchers at our institution, I think over half of the research data sets were within that limit. We provide recommendations on licensing, recommendations on metadata. So we provide some services already for some kinds of data sets that can potentially play in a national data service infrastructure and environment. The library has taken the lead on creating a research data management service group across the entire institution. So it is jointly sponsored by the Vice Provost for Research and the University Librarian, but in fact the library itself has put the resources into this. We provide a number of consultants, although other organizations within the institution also work on that. We collaborate with our Center for Advanced Computing, our Center for Social Science Research, and others on that effort. Just to give you an idea of the kind of services we support, we do consultation on data management planning. We're at the interesting stage now where some of the things we help people, some of the proposals we help people develop data management plans for are just hitting the end of life, and we're going to see if we start actually getting some of those deposits and things that they were promising in their original data management plans. We maintain a set of best practices. We provide specific advice and pointers to services for collaboration, data analysis, data sharing, high-performance computing, intellectual property issues, a full range of issues around data. Cornell also runs, as many institutions do, a repository that covers a broad disciplinary area for many, international one in our case, archive.org. Supports preprints in physics, mathematics, computer science, and a few other areas. And we have done, actually, with archives, some initial work on tying publications to research data sets. We did a pilot with the Data Conservancy, where people could add data to their papers. It was deposited in the Data Conservancy. So we've worked in piloting efforts to do this data linkage. And I think we would be certainly open to doing more as part of a national data service to provide this kind of linkage. So there's National Data Service, 17 files. So now I'll talk a little about what, again, from the library perspective, what we see as how the National Data Service might fit in this broader ecosystem of tools and services. One question for us to discuss really is where does the National Data Service fit in the overall cycle of research? We've talked a lot about discovery. We've talked about storage, analysis and synthesis, tying it with publication. Does the NDS want to cover the entire spectrum of research activity and foster the entire cycle of research, or do we pick off areas that we want to really concentrate on? An interesting related program, which I think Rick Luce is going to be talking a bit more about later, is an effort of the Association for Research Libraries with the AAU and the Association of Public and Land-Grant Universities. focused on making research outputs discoverable and available. So the initial effort, this was a response to the OSTP access mandate. The initial effort is a notification system, so think something like Twitter, where it's an awareness feed of research outputs covering the entire spectrum of research outputs. So software, publication, data, whatever. But later steps in the share effort are going to include creating a real discovery layer and registry layer that supports research data and discovery. So question, how does NDS differ from share? How do the two platforms interoperate? The subject of long-term preservation and sustainability has already come up. So 50 universities are currently working together on a digital preservation network. This is a replicating infrastructure designed to ensure that digital data continues to be available for the long term, with a focus on making it clear to university presidents and provosts that this is a responsibility of the academy, that we can't necessarily count on other organizations, not necessarily publishers or funders or anybody else, to preserve this stuff for the long term, that the academy has to take responsibility for this effort. And again, I would ask, how do NDS and DEEPN work together to help address these issues? Some other systems and solutions are out there. ORCID, I think, may have come up already as a researcher identifier. DataCite, DOI, linked open data compatible identifier for citation. I'll just mention the issue of not just the data set, but all of the stuff you need around it, the software, the links to publications and so on has come up. Researchobject.org is looking at building research objects that can support that kind of activity. So now to my perhaps controversial part of this. Libraries are starting to move to linked open data to more fully describe and share what they know about the resources they work with. One of the first places that this has happened has been in the area of researcher networking. I should give a big shout out as I talk about Vivo to the National Institutes of Health, which provided $12 million to turn this from a pretty small effort into one that's now pretty widely adopted. So Vivo connects scientists and scholars with and through their research and scholarship. It was funded as part of the biomedical research networking effort. It was adopted, in fact, by the CTSA researcher networking group as a standard, but it covers the entire institution. Our classics department drives their website off of the linked open Vivo data. So we're seeking to connect researchers with their publications, with research data, with all of the sort of organizational structure there within, all the pieces. We know the importance of a common language across, as we look across organizations, across disciplines, across international boundaries. We need a common way to express information about research and the research process, and Vivo seeks to provide that. So Vivo itself, it's a set of software, an open source semantic web-based tool. It's data, institutional authoritative data about researchers and what they do. It's a set of standards, the Vivo data standard, with a standard ontology that interconnects researchers and communities with linked open data. And it's an open community with strong national and international participation, a legal and financial home in DuraSpace, and in fact, Lane Johnson here is our new Vivo project director, who's now leading that effort. So some of the advantages of linked data, you can harvest from a number of sites and easily build a search across multiple institutions. In the Vivo case, we have other faculty profiling systems. Harvard Profiles adopted the Vivo ontology, makes their data available in this format. Other researcher profiling systems have done the same. So this gives you a common language then that you can easily build tools on top of. The Vivo Consortium itself built one tool, but then a researcher, Dave Eichmann at Iowa, did his own tool that again harvests all of this linked open data and builds then a search across 125,000 people and 1.3 million publications focused on the CTSAs in the biomedical area. Another advantage of linked open data, it's easy to extend and build on. We had another NIH-funded project, CTSA Connect, that brought in research resources and extended the ontology to cover the kinds of facilities, services, techniques, protocols, all the sort of stuff around research data, and provide a context around the research process and research data. So there was a companion project at the same time, NIH-funded Vivo project that funded a project called Eagle Eye that focused on research resources, and we've now combined those ontologies and can represent this within one system. Another thing the CTSA Connect effort did was extend this description into the area of clinical activities. So really being able to talk about clinical practice in combination with research. So this has been a big focus of NIH. Vivo and this linked open data for research support has been used in other areas. The Deep Carbon Observatory data science platform combines the CCAN repository with Vivo and linked open data to again tie together the researcher community with the actual data sets. Here in Boulder, the Laboratory of Atmospheric and Space Physics had a problem. They had a bunch of data sets. They were basically doing narrative description with no structural way to tie the data sets together with the spacecraft, the instrument, the grants, the publications, the researchers. They've now extended the Vivo ontology to do that, to include descriptions of spacecraft, instruments, and build a Vivo instance that builds this entire context around the research data set. So, stepping back a moment, a few closing thoughts. So what will compel researchers to share data and to use the National Data Service to do so? How does the NDS move from the vision of a few people to a broad community effort? We do have fairly broad representation here. Maybe that's one step in the right direction. What unique services does the NDS provide that are so compelling that we have to be part of it? And finally, if the NDS succeeds, does Cornell succeed? Do we win? Do you win? Do the funders win? How do we make sure that that happens? So I think I have a minute or two left for questions. I'm still standing between you and the first break. So, any questions? Sure.
Yeah, sorry for talking so much. Can you say something, Dean, about take-up of your infrastructure for publication of research results at Cornell? Do the scientists there, are they aware of it? Are they eager providers of data sets? Or do you have to go around kind of twisting arms?
We certainly go around talking with them about what we can provide for them. So I don't know that it's twisting arms. And again, it's a huge variation. I mean, sometimes a faculty member will be coming toward the end of their career and realizing, my gosh, I don't have any place this stuff is. How do I make sure that it's preserved for the long term? I think the NSF data management plan has clearly pushed people to having this conversation. We're hoping the OSTP mandate will do more. I mean, certainly as the library, we really feel an ownership for preserving the research outputs of the institution. And we try to work with the faculty to do that. And actually we see Vivo as a piece of that, helping us track where it is that people are putting this stuff so that we can make sure that it's preserved for the long term.
So I just bring it up mainly because I think it's something we do have to keep in mind is tracking
Yes.
the take-up, not only on the provider side, but also on the user side.
Yes.
Are we really providing a service that people want, from both perspectives?
Yeah, and again, it's dependent very much on their own research communities. What are the norms there? I mean, it's not something the library can drive. It's something the library can support. we can encourage, but the push has to come from within the research communities themselves. Any other questions? All right, thanks.
Okay, thank you very much, Dean.